Hey, everybody, it's Dean and Nathan just breaking into the beginning of this episode real quick to say we thank you for your patience last week. LSG Media was off. The mothership was in town. That's my mom. And we were doing lots of work. So we put on hold everything that we were doing for the whole of LSG Media. So you are going to be enjoying the conclusion of the menagerie talk. So thank you. And so a couple quick house cleaning things. If you have not gotten stickers yet, I went to my P.O. box today and I saw that Terry Mitchell, your stickers came back to me, so I need an updated address. But anybody who has reviewed us who did not get stickers, please email me your name and your address, and I'll take your word for it, and I'll send you stickers. Just send it to dean@libertystreetgeek.net. That's dean@libertystreetgeek.net. And while we're on the topic, if you guys would be so kind as to get back to reviewing us, that would be awesome. I think we got 75 or so. Mm-hmm. And if you're listening to this and you want to help the show out a little bit and help us gain some momentum, let's go ahead and get some reviews going again. But we've gotten quite a bit since April 1st, so we thank you for that. Yes. I don't know if there's anything you want to throw in on that.
No, I missed you fine folks last week.
Yeah.
And I look forward to talking some more Trek.
In a little teaser, we've already recorded what's going to be the next one. And your little hint is we're going to be talking about the episode from Next Gen called The Wounded. Mm-hmm. And we may also be having some guests appear, over the next few weeks. Guests meaning of LSG and LSG Media adjacent. So that'll be kind
Avery
of fun.
Brooks. Scott Bakula.
Nice. Yep. But no, not even close. But we thank you for listening. The show has been doing well. It's it's searchable in the iTunes store. It's listed up there in the top whatever of Trek shows now, which is awesome. So we appreciate the love. It's been really awesome. And of course, if you're listening to this and you want to follow me, you can follow me on Instagram, which is at LSG Dean, is it? Or Dean LSG? I don't remember. One of those. I can't remember. I'm so bad at this part. But anyway, we thank you guys for your patience. And I should have told you ahead of time. I should have put a little audio thing on this that said we're going to be out, but I didn't. I failed to do so. So mea culpa.
Yes.
But I think that's all we wanted to say other than thank you for the continued support.
Yes. Thank you indeed.
All right. We are out of here. Enjoy the show. Now hear this. Now hear this. On this week's episode of Kirking Off, we get back to the mentally advanced Telosians who have dreamed themselves into being incapable of handling basic mechanical things, like fixing their own toasters. Their solution seems to be an elaborate mating scheme, and Captain Pike must struggle between principle and desire as he is tempted at each turn by the seductive illusions of his alien captors. Is the conundrum which the Telosians face proof that holodecks are bullshit? Will the temptations thrust upon Pike be too much to overwhelm his 60s nightly Christian virtue? Are we all closer to Cypher from the Matrix than we are willing to admit? I present to you The Menagerie, Part 2, from Star Trek, the original series.
Welcome to Kirking Off, a warped Star Trek shakedown with hosts Nathan and Dean.
He got a fine tan shirt with an emblem on the chest.
There's this great quote by Pike in this episode where he says, "The power of illusion is so great, we can't be sure of anything we do."
Yes.
Which gets back to what we were saying last week, which is this idea of not only is an illusion something you can see, but also something that you can't see. And that extends deeper in this episode with that quote. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that because I think that is a wild fucking concept. We can't be sure of anything we do. I think that's such a mind bender. You can be convinced that you are doing or not doing something with the power of illusion. And what I like about this concept is that the Telosians employ their ability through the mind, which is so much more powerful than saying I'm going to conjure a physical image of something, right? If I go into your head, you can basically just stand there drooling like Pike in a wheelchair and anything could be happening. It's a complete, they use the word dream a lot in this episode.
Yep.
Dreams. What are your dreams? What do you dream about? What's a dream you've always wanted? They're too afraid to say fantasy or wild indulgence.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of it as a dream because the dream is the ultimate. You're unconscious in a bed, most likely, and you are in some dreamscape.
Yeah.
And
The mind is
and
doing
you
it
think
all.
you're doing things that
Yeah.
you're not doing.
Yeah.
And that gets back to this idea of illusion and the inability to know what you are even doing is really fascinating to me because it's not like you fall unconscious and your body's doing things and then you wake up and you go, what did I do? That's different. That's like possession. Whereas this, it's just like we're so powerful that while you're conscious and moving around, we can indicate things to you that you don't know. We can create things out of nothing in your mind's eye, and you can't stop
In
us.
your waking mind. Yeah.
Nothing you can do
Yeah.
to stop us.
You
It's so
cannot
powerful.
Trust your senses at all.
It's so powerful. But it makes me think, is Talos proof that holodecks are bullshit?
Yes.
It
I
is.
think. I had that same thought.
Right.
Well, in part because we learn of the background of the Talosians, who look awesome, by the way.
They're cool looking.
I like these as far as Star Trek
Absolutely.
Villains go.
Big heads,
Yeah.
creepy, like
And
pulsating
pulsing, yeah.
veins and shit.
They are super well done for aliens.
Yeah.
And I love, you have this idea of they have a certain arrogance to them and everything like that. And they're looking for people to do physical labor for them, essentially.
Yeah, so a quick piece about the Talosians, and we'll get back to the holodeck question, is just their planet was ravaged by war,
Yep.
destroyed, they were driven underground, and there's a lot of philosophical questions in this episode. This episode is definitely more compelling from a way that you would reflect upon it than the first one. The first one's a good episode of TV. I don't know how thought-provoking it is.
No.
This is the thought-provoking episode.
Yes.
Because we get into
This is the payoff.
what
Yeah.
precisely. We get into what exactly motivates these guys, and that's the compelling piece. What motivates the Talosians to do what they're doing? Why are they doing it? And a good motivation can make for an interesting antagonist. And not even a villain, but an antagonist.
Yeah.
Somebody with goals perhaps different than yours. It doesn't mean they're bad.
Yeah.
But they're driven underground, Nate. And they find themselves, instead of attempting to deal with what's in front of them, they decide to, and maybe they had a propensity for telepathy already, they decide to indulge in that telepathic ability and to create essentially illusion worlds for them to exist
Yes.
in. So essentially what you're telling me is that
They basically have holodecks in their heads.
they have holodecks in their heads. They're basically saying, if somebody is playing 6 to 8 hours of World of Warcraft every day, they're
Yeah.
probably going to struggle to put up a shed for you.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm
And if you
kidding.
need that shed to survive,
I'm kidding, of course. Being a WoW player does not suppose you have no mechanical inclination. But
Definitely.
what they're saying is you'd rather disappear into fantasy
yes.
then you would confront the reality of what you need to do to rebuild society.
Yep.
That's such an interesting concept, and we see how they've evolved. I mean, I don't know how long it's been, but they've evolved over time to really have these powerful minds that can do this, not just to themselves,
But to each
they
other,
can
yeah.
pull you into their holodeck world too. And we've been dancing around this idea of illusion and stuff, and I think what compounds it to make it even more compelling, outside of it happening in your head, is we haven't even talked about this. I can go into your head and extrapolate all of your fantasies out of your head and then present them to you.
Yeah.
And you are
Well-
now in a position to where I've made the perfect holodeck for Nathan.
And it's not like it's watching TV or something like that.
That's important.
Your body is experiencing these things.
It's holodeck.
There's a scene where, to punish Captain Pike, they basically send him to hell.
it's brutal.
And it is impressive. And it is certainly, he conveys quite well that it is extremely painful.
Yeah.
So the pain is real, which is one of the things the other human being they have from this previous crash, Vina says to him. It's like, yeah, a lot of this isn't real or whatever, but what it does to you is you
Right.
will feel the pain.
Right. And that's important to know. So this Vina crash landed on this planet with another group, and she's the only survivor.
Yep.
And these Talosians have pitted them in together. They've put them together, and now they're having them sort of experience this world that seems quite real. They don't even realize it's illusion yet, but that's what they're experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's funny how you chose to call it hell. Mm-hmm. This gets back to something I teased in the first episode, which is this idea of Christian virtue, because I think there's a lot of that going on in this. And what I mean by Christian virtue is I mean this idea of trying to do the difficult thing and not the easy thing, right? Mm-hmm. To try to, and to be clear, like any religion, I think this goes without saying, there's the tenets of the virtue, and then there's the practitioners who don't exhibit those virtues.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying any and all. I'm just saying on paper the virtue of, say, resisting the temptation of the flesh, so to speak. And I find that interesting because so much of what Pike's experiencing is attempting to resist a life with this woman. Mm-hmm. He's a man with a mission. He's a man with a code. He wants to get back to what he's supposed to be doing, right? This is
well, and something we kind of missed, because I believe it was in the first episode. It was one of the few parts they played, is when he is talking to his doctor friend, on the ship.
Boyce,
yeah, about how he basically...
we teased like, I want to quit, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, and he has this conversation about a mission to Rigel 7 that went awry, and his yeoman and 2 other crewmen were killed, and 5 were severely injured. So he had a lot of regret about this and having to make those decisions and be the captain and have everybody counting on him. And so one of the things they pull out of him, of course, is the very recent experience he had. And we now get to see kind of the mission on Rigel 7, where he fights a giant can't get right.
This guy is a goddamn mess. I think this guy just stumbled onto the set drunk from King Richard's Fair.
Yes, exactly. He's got lots of costume going on, shall we say.
There's a lot. It's a lot. He looks like he picked it up at one of those pop-up stores that show up around the end of August.
Yes.
And it just says Barbarian, and it's in a little plastic bag. And you put it on, and it never fits right, and you look ludicrous.
Yeah.
That's him.
And it is funny to think that there was some kind of Starfleet mission to this guy's planet.
Yeah.
He's one of the Rigel 7 warriors. And what the hell did Starfleet want with them? Jesus.
Know. Is this what the poor son of a bitchin' Byzantine saw in Constantinople?
I'm thinking yes.
As they just rushed in, and that was that.
But to get back to kind of the idea of the holodeck and everything, you have this race that basically destroyed themselves with mental leisure, and or at least fantasy or fantasy experience.
It put them into a state of, last episode we said, bodies that tend to, that are in motion tend to stay in motion. Same with the ones at rest.
Yeah.
Which is what we kind of see with the Telosians here.
Yes, which is really kind of funny because so they obviously have these wonderful mental powers and stuff, but evidently they can no longer fix their own toasters and the like. So
they're Boomer McCoy.
Yeah, they are Boomer McCoy now. They can't program their own VCRs, and they're going to need help.
Yep.
And so that's why they're reaching out to different spacefaring races and trying to basically kind of kidnap populations and start their own population of slaves.
Bones, if you wouldn't keep putting malware on your computer, I'd suspect you.
Bones, if you hadn't loaded that Telosian computer virus that lets them watch you all the time.
I only know how to saw off limbs, Jim.
That's why I got the name Bones.
I'm old school.
Yeah, well, literally his
Sawbones.
Yeah, his nickname is the ultimate old school doctor. So, but so it is a little hard to believe though that a Telosian race that is so advanced mentally and everything is having this problem. But I like the premise, and how that ties into the holodeck is that as soon as humanity develops that kind of holodeck technology, we are as doomed as the Telosians.
That's my point.
Yes.
Alice just proved the holodecks is bullshit.
Yes.
They would never be allowed in Starfleet for this reason alone.
Especially not on a ship.
Right. And I'll tell you, we really get into it here with Vina. Vina's like, I can be anything you want. Vina couldn't be more ready to get plowed by Pike.
Yes.
Right?
She's clearly been by herself for a long time. You know?
And we also know she's being motivated by the Telosians, who have punished her already.
Yes. And so, in fact, there's some thought that they used her concept, or what she wanted in a man, to find Pike.
Yes.
And bring him down specifically.
Yes. But it's, right. That's pretty wild. That's
Yeah.
flattering as fuck.
Yeah.
Of all the men in the galaxy, what they were able to extrapolate from her mind is this guy, and that's why he's been chosen, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah,
Which is what lured him here in the first place. That's a crazy concept.
yeah.
But no, I do like the idea of this. You know, I get back to the Christian virtue thing. Everything he could possibly imagine, his dream, the fucking horses, the 1950s picturesque.
Going on picnics.
We're on picnics with the horse tied up. We're going to kissy kiss in the grass. To fending that off in favor of the more challenging reality that he faces, where he could just sort of let it go and be here and just have everything he ever wanted.
Yeah, especially since at the beginning of this episode, the cage, and also the menagerie, that we know he was thinking about resigning and stuff like that. So this is sort of what he wanted.
Sure, yeah, it's a temptation that he voiced.
Yeah, he's like, I could do anything. Like there's lots of stuff I could do if I just stop being a starship captain.
But Boyce in that first episode, he says something along the lines of, "Yeah, but not for you."
Yeah.
Which is essentially suggesting the very virtue which we start to see manifest, which is not you. Boyce knows him enough to advise him to say, "Listen,
that's not what you want. Yeah,
not you. This goes back to Beatrix Kiddo.
Yeah,
you can dress up like mommy, but we know what you are. You're a killer."
Yeah, and the fact that, even with this kind of idea in his head of what would make him potentially happy, we see that he's not going to be happy with any of it because he is,
because he
Captain
knows.
Pike.
See, that's the rub.
Yep.
That's where a man has to really see if he can endure the difficulty of maintaining his principle, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's something missing from most people, which is principle is great, but if it's difficult, fuck it.
Yeah, yeah.
I think a lot of us would probably choose the easy path with the Telosians. This gets back to a great villain in Matrix is such a great villain in Matrix because he reflects all of us, and that's Cypher.
Yep.
He's like, put me back in.
Yeah.
Plug me in. I
was lied to.
I was lied to.
Yeah.
I know the steak isn't real, but I don't care because I can taste it.
Yep.
And that's what matters. And that gets super philosophical, right? Is it real? Is it not? Does it matter? If I can taste it, it's fucking real. For all intents and purposes, it's happening on some level.
Or how dumb do you have to be to think that they can and will bother putting you back in?
Yeah, that too.
They're just going to kill you.
Of course.
But he's so desperate.
He's so desperate. That's the point. He'll do anything to get out of the life he's in.
Even
which
the
is
dream of getting out.
Flying around a bunch of sewers.
Yeah.
With a bunch of bald people, and all cramped together all the time.
Yeah, and the only time you get to really feel the things that life used to be about, the food and everything like that, is when you're in the Matrix.
Right.
Pretty powerful drug.
Very powerful drug, just like the Telosians have the ultimate powerful drug, which is why they're so dangerous.
Yeah.
Dangerous insofar as they hold up a mirror to us and make us reflect upon that which is us. It really challenges us. You're essentially being gifted with Shangri-La, and you're being told you just have to... I think the part of it that I like is where the Telosians say you would rather, because you don't want to make the concession of us, you would rather rebel and resist and take the pain than you would the ease of this thing, which is an elevated virtue. That's my point, right? Yeah. And that's Christianity in a sense, right? That's one of the religions that says, yes, you're suffering, but that's okay because salvation awaits you. Yeah. It's not, there is no revenge. That's very different than other religions. It's not like, oh, no, I'm coming for you because you came for me. No, you fucking take it. That's what you do. You take it.
The reality, too, in this episode, though, is that's how Pike gets one up on them, essentially, is realizing that they have, in their, evolved state, so to speak, they have a lot of trouble if you're just flooding your mind with thoughts of violence and killing.
Very cool.
And hate.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Why? Because they have none of it.
Yeah.
They don't get it. They don't get it. Yeah. And that makes sense if you consider these particular beings we're experiencing, they weren't there in the war. Think of them as children of children of children who how about this? Here's a good way to think about it. To use the Matrix comparison because it works really well.
It does, actually, yeah.
Born into the Matrix.
Yeah.
That's what they all are. You're born into the Matrix.
They know what's outside.
That's the difference between Cypher and a regular sleeper is you don't know. Cypher knows both worlds.
Yep.
The average human being it doesn't. They were born into the Matrix. They never knew anything else. And my point in telling you that is if the Matrix, one of the reasons the Matrix failed is because humanity's collective consciousness would not accept heaven.
Yeah.
Like something is wrong and it would fuck up the Matrix. That's a great concept. Such good writing, by the way.
Yeah.
You could almost argue that that's not what happens to the Telosians, which is why they struggle.
Yeah.
So the Telosians are like, no, we've only ever known peace and everything else. You know, we only know violence when we read your mind and go, ooh, that's interesting that it's hell.
Yeah.
As we get back to the Christian virtue, he's like, oh, you would hate hell, I guess. Pike.
Yeah.
So here you are burning in the flames of hell.
Some concept you found out about at an ancient church or something.
Sure.
She says to him.
Sure.
The
Oh,
keeper
that's
does.
cool.
Yeah.
I missed that line.
Yeah, the keeper says something specific about it.
That's neat.
In fact, it's...
On in the background.
Yeah, and I love the fact that it is sort of graphic, too. I mean,
It's
you
very graphic.
You get
yeah.
the flames, and he's covered in, like, you know, this kind of like oil almost kind of looking stuff. And they really, from a fable you once heard in childhood, that's the...
Careful way to write it, Roddenberry.
Yes, exactly. And so, they're like, oh, and here, eat this stuff. And he's like, no. And she's like, okay, well, we can burn you, or we can make it taste like anything you want. You
right.
know? We can make it into anything you want.
Right. And it's funny that it comes down to those types of negotiation tactics, which makes perfect sense because as we're going to come to learn as the episode progresses, the Telosians don't wish harm on anyone.
No, it is funny to think that they're not really a villain.
They're not. They're an antagonist because they're working against you.
Yeah.
But they are not villains. And that's an important distinction.
For some reason, I don't know why, I feel for them and I like them.
Yeah. It's interesting, right?
Because, obviously they've found themselves in this very strange place on a societal level. And I think one of the problems is all of their machines that are keeping their race alive are all breaking down and they have no idea how to fix them.
Right.
And that isn't...
And to be clear, it's almost like a meta example of everything that happens in this episode as it is. Not just the ability, but the desires kind of like fleeting because they can just retreat into their mind.
Yeah, but I also think that's why it's posed as this existential threat.
For sure.
Because at some level, some very basic level that still exists in them, despite all of the, ability to, use your illusion 1 and 2. Despite all of that,
when you're talking to yourself and nobody's home.
I mean, we see them walking around. We see them as they are. They don't project themselves into the Greek gods like we see in a different episode of the original series and stuff like that.
Sure.
They are what they are, and so I think at some point they do desire reality, and they desire fixing up their planet
for sure,
and maybe moving on from this fantasy world that they created for themselves, or living in this perpetual fantasy.
That point begs the question, Nate, and I'm glad you brought it up. But there has to be a point where you hear about this. You hear about the Caligula and all of the debauchery you could have ever have wanted forever. At some point, you're let's be real. Post-cum clarity is a thing. And after you achieve post-cum clarity with every manner of woman and or man you've ever wanted to in your whole life forever, at some point reality sets in like, fuck, I got to do the dishes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think so much of the efforts we expend on this planet, I love the irony of this. This is such a good episode. The irony of this is that we do everything we can to try to get together and fuck. And the Telosians are like, will you just fuck already? We've given you fucking everything. Yeah. It's like the perfect description of humanity.
Yes.
Or at least, well, let me rephrase that. It's the perfect representation of the West, which is, or let's be more specific. It's a perfect representation of Americans, North Americans, specifically the United States, which is like, no. Like, I'm going to do it my fucking way. Yeah. It's very my way. I'm going to do it the way I want to do it.
In part because you want us to do a thing.
Yeah, there's a rebellious streak in these guys.
And what is interesting is that this is the perpetual issue that, faces Starfleet. So they've encountered this alien species that needs help to survive. And,
Indeed.
But because of the nature in which they were asked, essentially.
And not asked at all, to be frank.
Not asked at all. There's this natural kind of tendency to just fight it.
Sure.
And
well, because, there's a great episode. Is it Captain's Holiday?
That's the one where he goes to Ryza.
It is. There's a moment. Yes, but he said, and it might be the one where at the end of the episode they capture the guys, they hold them in a force field.
Oh
on the
no,
bridge.
yeah, that's captive interest or
Captive Pursuit.
That's it.
Captive Pursuit, and because they took Picard, they replaced him, and he's like, "Oh, we only captured." He's like, "No, that's an injury." He's being metaphorical, and that's what he's trying to. He's like, "No, that's an assault. Like that's wrong." Where I come from, you can't just take people, and it's almost like that's what we're seeing here. Like the Telosians probably have this idea in their head, like, "Isn't this great?" And they're like, "You fucking captured me, dude!" Right?
and I love that in Next Gen they make those aliens kind of goofy and and
then they capture them and make them feel the pain,
and not even remotely malicious. Like they're trying to learn about humanity, and the other races that And
it's almost like this in a sense.
The Picard version that they put there is awesome.
He's great.
He's singing in 10-4 and stuff.
Absolutely.
I love that episode for that reason. Just Patrick Stewart giving it his all. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we see exactly a very similar kind of situation here. And what I don't get is, if they had polled the crew and just asked, I bet they could have gotten 25 volunteers or something like that,
But you know what they did? They went right into, let's tempt them with their greatest desire. That's the irony of it, right?
I think
our whole species exists to do what they're trying to get us to do here.
And I think that they basically thought to themselves, oh, okay, we have a situation where, this is what seduced us down the dark path to losing our, selves, so to speak. Why don't we use it to seduce, so to speak, some humans to do what we want?
But and you know what I like?
It's almost like it's the only tool they know. It's the only tool they have,
and the only blueprint they have is Vina.
Yeah,
and they're like, how are we gonna get somebody here? And then they're fucking bumming because they're like, did it have to be Pike? Because he's giving them such trouble with his Christian virtue, as it were.
Well, and I think, too, I wonder if Vina obviously must have had a similarly rebellious streak because she knows all about the punishment.
Being punished, correct.
But also, essentially, when they detected, in her mind or whatever, the perfect guy for her and kind of projected it and found Pike specifically, I mean, she was looking for someone to rescue her, so to speak.
Correct.
And someone who would have as much rebellion as I think she necessarily did.
It makes you wonder, did she conjure that in her mind, knowing over time it might get her something to get her out of there?
Yeah, exactly. Or maybe it's so innate in her.
Maybe it's you've been oppressed for so long, you are dying for a fucking prince to swoop in and get you out of this place. And they go, oh, here's your guy. And what I like about that is they're limited in their exposure to not know that he could be a problem.
Yeah, yeah.
I like that. That shows the true alien nature of how they exist, right?
And how their society is. You know what I mean?
If they were humans, they'd be like, no, not Pike. He's going to be a nightmare. But they don't know.
No. And one thing that I laughed at in the first episode is when he's sitting down with the doctor, Dr. Boyce, and he's like, oh, I could, go into business in Orion or whatever. And
that's right.
He's like, what? And sell green animal women and as slaves or something? I'm like, yeah, that's not something you really think a Starfleet captain would be considering.
Right.
I'm going to go into slavery. What the hell, Pike? But anyway, come to find out. So we now smashed.
Come to find out, he did just that. He had a lucrative slave business.
He ended up, before he went back into Starfleet to rescue children, he spent about 10 years as a slaver.
That's where he made his money, so he could buy all those orphanages and build them all. What? You're going to tell me that's not a worthy cause? Sell a couple of Orion girls? They're not even human. Look, they're not humans. We're going to build the most terrific orphanages.
But so what is funny too is we then see basically what that would have looked like in the second part when
that's awesome
because they're like, oh, we've given him
love this place.
Yeah,
bunch of creeps. Oh, this
One who's in a
place.
Starfleet uniform too.
Oh, look at her. I'd like to spank her on the bottom.
So there's obviously a seamy underbelly to the galaxy.
And
Star
Starfleet
Trek.
specifically.
Yeah. But so what I liked about that was the idea that they were like, okay, so we've tried, the 1950s Vina. We've tried the damsel in distress Vina and stuff. We're going to do the Orion slave girl Vina.
So hot.
As trying to like basically come to a place where giving Pike something he's never had, essentially.
Right. I think if we take this along that we're trying to tempt the virtuous man
Yes,
path, this is the greatest temptation.
And that is the ultimate one, yeah.
Right. And I
so-
like it because it's very, I like that. I like that she is green, thus making her different. I like this idea of her being this temptation from beyond almost. It is. It's very, this has a very, a very Western style Odyssey feel to it, like being the temptations of the flesh for our fucking, it's well,
someplace far from home.
I keep
someplace
saying
strange.
Christian, and the reason I'm saying this because it's almost like a virtue challenge that you would face if you were, say, like a knight.
Yeah.
Where you're a knight of Christ.
Well, or in like Excalibur.
Absolutely.
Or even perhaps more importantly in Monty Python,
Yeah.
the Holy Grail. The virginal Sir Galahad.
We're all between the ages of 18 and 24.
It's so awesome.
It's great. He's like, oh, no. No, oh, shit. When he leaves. Such a great fucking movie.
Oh, it is. John Cleese runs in and saves him. No.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But perhaps we could say for a little while. Oh, fuck. But no, yeah, it is. It is. If you made this a medieval tale, you could see how this knight, this Catholic knight from fucking wherever, is just going on these trials.
Yeah, with these very intense temptations.
That I'll tell you. It's interesting to see what can we do in the 60s on TV. And if you talk to people of the era, they'll be like, "Oh, yeah, I definitely pulled to this up when Mom wasn't looking." But just there's this moment where she's dancing and it's cool, whatever. And she runs her fucking hand, her back of her hand, and her mouth open across her face. I was like, "That's the hottest thing I've ever seen." And it's like not nudity, It's cool. It just got a primal. They're trying to show an animalistic type of thing.
Yeah, no, for sure.
It's cool, and I mean, to the point where it drives Pike out of the room.
Yes,
it's
he
very
flees. He flees.
He literally flees his boner so hard. It's that moment in Excalibur or Lamort Darth, take your pick, they're the same thing, where Lancelot has his arm up and his fucking sword on Guinevere's belly.
Yeah.
And she just grabs it and like moves it away, and she's kissing the armor, and he can't resist. They fuck in the woods. It's really hot.
Yeah.
But it's that moment, Pike was like, I got to get out of here right now.
I'm going to run. Yes.
I'm going to run.
And she follows him, of course.
She does. Yeah, that's a great scene.
But he still manages to resist.
He does.
So then what happens? We have an away team about to beam down.
Now, before you do that,
Yep.
I want to say one thing. There's a couple of lines I want to get to before we move off of like some of the Venus stuff.
Yeah.
It's simple, but she says, if it doesn't matter what you call this, she's talking to Pike at one point. She says, it doesn't matter what you call this, you'll feel it.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that sums up everything that's going on in here, where she has almost, in a sense, accepted her fate, or at least knows she has little control over it, to where she says, in that, I think that gets back to Cypher.
Yeah.
I know this isn't steak, but I can taste it.
Yeah.
It's the same idea. She's basically saying your philosophical nonsense is great.
Yeah.
In your high and mighty ethics that you think of this place is wonderful. But here's the reality.
Yeah.
You're going to feel it.
Yeah.
For better or worse. Whether it's plowing me as an Orion girl or whether it's feeling like you're in a fucking hellfire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what I like about that too is it just gets to that fundamental nature of reality.
Totally.
When you have that dream and stuff, you don't necessarily feel it. And I mean, you might sort of remember feeling it in the dream and stuff, and you'll certainly remember your emotions and stuff in the dream. But as far as like pain, you don't wake up going,
pain. Yeah.
going, oh my God, I dreamed I was on fire. And like, I'm still like in shock.
Right.
Because of course that would be absolutely shocking. Your body would physically go into shock.
I remember once I had a dream. I was in a medieval battle, pretty wild.
Yeah.
And I got hit in the stomach with a spear. and then I pushed it away, and I woke up clutching my stomach. I had a stomach ache.
Really?
Isn't that wild?
That is wild.
So it's like it built it in. I've had those before. Somebody's banging on the door, and I hear thunder in the dream, and then I wake up, and someone's banging on the door. I'm like, what the fuck? So like your dream, think of how advanced that is. That's how fast your mind will whip that like shit around your or your unconsciousness in this case.
Exactly. And how much of that, so you might have actually had the stomach ache.
First and then the dream worked around it. That's my point. It's not the other way around.
Not the other way around.
Unless it's Freddy Krueger.
Yeah.
Then he'll cut your guts open, throw you on the ceiling.
Yes, or just suck you through the bed.
Suck you through the bed.
And explode. That was Johnny Depp, right?
Yeah, 18 years old or some shit.
Yeah.
His first movie role.
And he gets exploded by a bed.
It's exploded. And then the bed fucking shoots a geyser of blood all over the ceiling.
I remember seeing that as a kid and be like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's wild.
Is there that much blood in a person? No.
No.
But so the reality is, what is reality? You know?
Yeah.
They are giving you're seeing it, you're smelling it, you're feeling it, you're hearing it, you're feeling it. What is left? You know what I mean? And so...
you know what? Are you going to go? Because I want to ask a question.
But by all means, yeah.
What is left is a very good question, because if all of your five senses are engaged, for all intents and purposes, it's reality. This, without getting overly philosophical here, the only thing that remains is the memory that it remains. Mm-hmm. So it begs the question sometimes, what if you strike a memory from someone's head? Can they even say it reliably happened? Mm. I guess if you're Pike, you can say, I was on the Delta rays fucked me. Even if he doesn't remember, we see the evidence that something happened.
Yeah.
But to him, maybe not. Maybe in his own reality, he's just like, I'm in this chair, I remember nothing before.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But,
well, and so if,
But what is left is a question.
Yeah. Well, and I think ultimately, in a way, the Telosians sort of answer that as well. Because we see that, once again, they divested themselves from reality and they are paying the price for it.
Correct.
And so their idea to get humanity involved somehow is curious, because you're also using your powers to divest them from reality. And so,
it's such a great warning.
Yeah.
It's such a great warning to be a sloth, to engage in fantasy, to avoid your work.
Yeah.
This is more and more of a fucking night tale than the more I think about it, right?
Well, and they literally have, Captain Pike armed with a mason shield at one point.
That's true. Yeah.
So there is a night component to it for sure. And so with the... what was I going to say? Oh, okay. So
I fucked you up. I'm sorry, dude.
No. But so that idea of impending reality that you just can't escape, I think that is kind of what remains. And, so the fact that all of your senses and everything tell you all this is real, there is some part of you that's telling you it's not. Even if that's the part that just, the machine that makes our food has run out of food and now we're going to die.
Sure.
Which is where the Telosians find themselves. And so...
It's a good thing they didn't pick bones.
Yeah, exactly.
Shakes his head. Oh.
But so we move to, because all of the Venus stuff has failed.
Correct.
We're going to kidnap 2 more women off of the Enterprise, which it's kind of curious why, like I said, they don't want a bunch more people from the Enterprise. Because for all the Adam and Eve myth, I mean, surely they have enough understanding of science to know about inbreeding and how you can't breed a whole race of slaves from a single man and a single woman.
I think if I was to give the episode a little leniency, I'd say they're trying an alpha experiment.
Yeah.
And if it works, they'll lure more in. That would be my...
That's true.
They're like, okay, we now know how to tempt these people. Let's lure more in.
Because they do consider the whole thing an experiment. In the
right. You wouldn't pull in 1,000 and be like, well, if this fails, they want to contain the experiment first.
That's true. Yeah. Then you'd have a rather fractious group of people.
Right.
on the planet
to deal with. What do we do with them? Just make them a bunch of drooling idiots thinking about their greatest fantasies, I guess?
Yeah, and then slit their throats. They have ways around it.
Absolutely. Just unplug them from the Matrix. They'll die.
Yeah, exactly. So I do like the idea this is maybe just an experiment for them to see if humanity fills that role.
I'm making that up.
But then they say, well, we don't want the Federation's help because,
it kind of
our mental powers will prove too much temptation for humanity.
So
but we've seen that's not the case the whole episode.
Right, but maybe in experiencing some of the rest of the crew, they realize that these guys are the exception, maybe not the rule.
Yeah. Well, what really does put them over the edge is when number one just grabs a phaser and just sets it to overload. And she's like, I'm going to fucking kill us all.
I love it.
Yeah, and I love that Vina then, even though Captain Pike says go, back down into the Telosian world, she says, no, if they still have me, they're going to still try to lure others in.
Yes.
So she's ready to die as well. So she's going to stay with the exploding
Good
phaser.
writing right there.
Exactly. And so the the denouement of the episode is really impactful and good that way and very logical, except that one idea that, they've seen that humanity is resistant to the temptation of illusion, and yet they will accept no help from them for fear of, them becoming trapped as they have.
Right.
Which I like because I would easily probably be trapped. I'm
Right.
no paragon of knightly virtue.
I think that's the issue here
Yeah.
is they've selected the best and the brightest
Yeah,
that humanity
Starfleet's
has to
best, so to
offer. Sure. And that's, I think this gets back to Cypher.
Yeah.
Which is we're more Cypher than we are Neo for sure.
Yeah.
And I think that's
Well, and it's that perpetual, when you look back at something in history, you always think you're going to be the hero, but the reality is a lot of people were the villains, looking back at say, Germany.
That too. Yeah.
World War II.
Sure.
And stuff like that. How exceptional are you?
That's even a darker take on it, but a solid one is. I was just thinking
Cypher murders his friends.
No, of
and
course,
stuff to get back in.
Right. I think that's metaphorically showing us what we're willing to do to not have to face certain realities. Yeah. Right. Yeah. But it's
or just not to have to suffer through.
That's it. Yeah.
Like a mundane life, so to speak.
It's a cautionary tale to avoid to avoid things like, hey, I'll do anything for my own comfort, even at the expense of yours, so to speak. But no, I like the idea that the Telosians find themselves in that weird spot because of the types of people they've picked.
Yeah,
which started with Venus crash landing. So they're in a tough spot because they're trying to figure this out on their own.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, we have her, and then she proved to be difficult, and she lured Pike, and all of Pike's friends happen to be quite virtuous indeed.
Here's my question. They've had access to Spock, so to speak. What would Vulcans do? I think Vulcans would kind of be the perfect, send a little team of Vulcans down there. They're not really known for their extravagant passions, although from everything we learned, they're barely controlled, so to speak. That's why they developed their logic conundrum. So maybe they'd be the worst. Like suddenly the illusions start and everything, and they're all just pawn firing it up and just.
I was just going to say, if you lure the
murdering each other,
if you lure the Vulcans in during pawn far, or I'm assuming they all experiencing at different times.
At different times, yeah.
Otherwise, Vulcan shuts down for a couple of days while everyone fucks and fights. I don't know if that would work.
The Purge, Vulcan style.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, that is interesting. I can't believe that they can't find some kind of help. You know what I mean? Even if Pike's like, you know what? I know these guys, the Packlets. That'd be perfect for you. Nothing going on up there. We'll send a bunch of them down to you.
Guess who won't help you fix anything? Fucking Packlets.
Well, but so that's the thing too. Obviously, they won't be able to fix it, but they're the labor component, so to speak. Maybe.
Yeah, you could definitely pilot that meat vehicle to do a lot of digging and stuff.
And you basically have the Federation maybe help you do a little bit of terraforming, and then just to get some vegetation up there on the planet and everything. It might be interesting.
Do you think the ultimate temptation for Pike came when he described the redhead crew member as young and strong with an unusually strong female drive?
Yes. Well, here's the thing.
That would have been it for me.
I was going to ask you when you're presented with the diminutive blonde Vina, the rather normal height or just average
She's
height,
tall.
so to speak. Yeah.
She seems tall to me.
Oh, the redhead or the?
Oh, I thought you were going to say Una.
No, yeah, I was going to say. So the redhead is. It's funny. They got all three of the major hair colors and like the three heights.
It's funny
for Pike to pick from.
Right.
And you got to give
Kirk takes all three.
Yeah, I was going to say Majel Barrett credit too because she's great in this episode.
Yeah, she's really good.
Yeah, as and she
Vena's good too.
Yeah, and she's in command too. That's something that it's easy to miss.
In 1967 or whatever? That's awesome.
And when she's like, you know what? We're beaming like this piece of artillery down, and we're going to power it with the ships
to try to get downstairs.
To save Pike. And then they also do give a little nod where, the Talosian is like, and this one who has fantasized about you often.
Totally awesome.
So how awkward is the relationship between number one and Pike going forward?
Number one fantasized about Pike?
About Pike, yep.
Yeah, that's a...
And then the redhead always thought he was out of reach,
right?
But has learned that things are now different.
The second somebody halfway attractive tells you they've fantasized about you, that's a problem.
They're going to have trouble getting work done.
That's going to be a problem for you if they tell you.
Yeah,
there's going to be a lot of temptation there. But no,
but so you're picking the redhead.
I think so. just on the youth and unusually strong female drive. That's pretty awesome, if you ask me. Honestly, though, if I was like, I got to spend forever with this person, it would probably be the more interesting number one.
Yeah,
because she's just more intellectually available to like the other girl.
You have more in common with her for sure.
Not gonna lie, she definitely, that is a great, that is a hilarious moment in this episode on Usually Strong Female Drive. But she's horny. It's fine. That's
young.
That's a plus. Yeah, that's true too. We're gonna be on here for a fucking while. But they can dress her up. I mean, we learned that Vena's basically Quasimodo.
Yeah, I was gonna say, neither one of you
She's a fucking hunchback.
are going to age out of it.
These fucking ding-dongs are so bad. Listen, Vena is evidence that they don't know how to fix shit.
How to put things together.
They fucking hunchback her up, the shoulders crooked.
Well, and you admit you're presented with an alien anatomy for the very first time, and you're trying to save their life.
Yeah.
Mistakes will be made.
Illusion this shit.
And especially when the reality is you can just make her think she's fine.
Question. It's all illusion though.
Yeah.
Is she still fertile?
That is what I was going to ask, because it seems like she is too old for this.
That's what they make her. She looks 35. I mean, like, how old are they trying to with dirt on her face?
Well, no. So
18 years?
Yeah. Vena appears 18 in most of the episode, they say.
So she's only 36?
But see, she's on the original manifest. And so number one is like, so add 18 years to that. So
18
maybe
years plus.
Yeah, maybe she was 30 when she was on the ship. Okay. Now she's 48.
Right.
Something like that. So
that's a hard look.
Because they make her look pretty old.
That's a Mr. fucking Potato Head Talosian version 48, though.
Yeah.
She looks like she's 60.
Yeah, well, and maybe she is close.
Except for her lips. They couldn't do anything about that.
But so I was wondering if maybe there was just going to be some kind of stealing of biological material and using it in some kind of way.
She didn't go from luscious lips to like box cutter lips.
Because the person they show would be either rapidly menopausal or already postmenopausal.
That's fair.
They show someone who is quite old.
Yeah.
And so this whole experiment maybe it was just about breaking them.
With that back too, how's she going to lay flat to give birth?
Well, but see, it's all illusion anyway, Mm-hmm. They're going to be really doing it, but think that they're engaged in like Kama Sutra level sex.
No, that makes sense. But when it comes time for her to have a baby, she's going to be fucking. Yeah, she's going to be all crooked trying to deliver, laying on the bed.
And judging from their medical,
she'll have to do a squat birth.
I was going to say, judging from the medical technology, there's a very real danger she dies in childbirth. But then it's not like the Federation apparently has very good medical technology either, because look at poor Captain Pike. So, boop, boop. So maybe she's screwed either way. Mm. She feels anyway that the Federation can't possibly fix her. Fix her broken body. Whereas, and so she chooses to stay on the planet.
Right.
And now we kind of get to see her get a happy ending as well, because they're basically going to...
I must have missed that scene.
They're going to... Yeah. Well, it's not a literal happy ending.
Little upside down piano.
She's about to give Pike a happy ending.
But that doesn't happen either.
No. But they do beam down to the planet, and you do see them basically go down into the Talosian door there.
Yeah.
But once again, there's no way that this is actually a happy, ending for the Talosians, it seems.
No, it's pretty intense.
Yeah.
You have a unique hatred of captivity, he says. Yes. Even when pleasant, you prefer death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You are too violent and what's the other? Violent and something or other, ill-tempered. Or
Yeah, he talks about how unsuitable they are, and he essentially condemns the whole human race to just be like, yeah, we can't really, but there is this interesting modicum of respect at the end of the episode where they realize, and they've definitely kind of fucked up. Like they've it's what they've done is criminal.
Yes,
but it seems as if, let's talk about the conclusion.
Yeah, well, it seems as if they don't understand so much about not only humanity but reality, and so I think that's in keeping with how they're built, so to speak.
Right. And I think from a plot point, we should discuss that Mendes was never there.
No. Well, he was. I think he's really still at the starbase.
He's at the starbase, but he was never there.
Yeah.
And
which is very weird and doesn't make much sense.
And I guess the court-martial was a ploy
just to kill time.
Stall time, so because Kirk would eventually regain control of the vessel and not go to Talos, because he wouldn't want to violate General Order 7.
Yes.
So that was Spock's idea.
Yeah.
So what the fuck is Spock's plan in this whole thing? I want to talk about that. What motivated Spock? Why? I'm thinking the whole time, okay, he's being controlled by the Talosians. They've maybe his latent telepathy, which the show hadn't gotten into yet, maybe they're communicating with him or using him. But we learn that's not the case, that he did everything he meant to do willingly. And the only thing I can come up with is that he's just like, well, I'm loyal to my old captain, and he's got a tough spot. I'm going to bring him to this place.
Yeah.
That's insane.
That's how it's set up.
That's insane.
He's doing it entirely out of loyalty. I think it's kind of set up that he found out that of what situation Pike is in. And then, obviously, he gets the Talosians' help in some fashion at some point. And I don't know when
once
that
they
is.
get to a certain range, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, is he just like asking them for help? Does he send them a transmission and say, this is what happened to Pike, I'd like to bring him back? I don't know. But as to his actual motivation, it does appear to be a very un-Vulcan-like emotional sentimentality almost.
So let's think about this.
Because loyalty doesn't dictate you do this.
It doesn't make sense. So this is where I have a problem with the episodes, is we've just spent this whole time talking about what's motivating the Talosians to lure Pike to them. So what came first, the chicken or the egg? He must have lured them on. So the episode's sort of telling us Spock has been, that we're trying to lure Pike here. Where does Spock come into this? That's why I would almost think the Talosians, what might have made sense to me is if the Talosians reached into Pike's mind and Pike communicated with Spock and said, please do this for me. But instead we're seeing him say, no.
Yeah. You know, I think it was a matter of Spock heard about Pike, realized that, and realized the extent of his injuries, what that meant for his future and his fate. And he came up with the idea of bringing him back to Talos 4, like independently.
Right. And do you think when they were en route to Talos 4 that
must be when he somehow maybe he sends a transmission to Talos 4.
Oh, wait. See, here's the problem. I'm confusing this because this doesn't happen in real time. That's where I fucked up. So no, because the original Cage episode is 13 years ago. So 13 years ago, he went to Talos because he got lured to Talos.
Yes. Yeah.
And they don't necessarily want Pike back this time.
No.
that's where,
They're taking him back almost.
I'm sorry,
as
I
a mercy.
conflated Cage and Menagerie 1.
Oh, yeah.
Cage is just, he went there because he got lured there.
Yeah.
Because what we're seeing is shit from the Cage. I have to remember that.
Yeah.
That's where I fucked up. Okay, so it does make more sense.
Yeah.
Whereas Spock is just talking about loyalty in wanting to do this thing for this guy he served under to bring him to this place because Spock knows what this place can do and what it's capable of, and he can live out this life in his own head. Yeah. Okay, I got it. That was a hitch for a second. I should have watched The Cage again, but I didn't.
And they never quite say how the Talosians basically accept Spock's proposal.
I guess it's not necessary.
Well, because they are, we find out they're the ones beaming the imagery to the ship.
Probably because they ended up liking him 13 years ago and him showing them something, and now they're like, hey, can you do us this solid? He's fucked up now. And they're like, sure.
Yeah, and I think ultimately they never had any malice towards humanity.
Right.
And no malice towards Pike himself.
Right. There's a little smile at the end of the episode, actually.
Yeah, it was a weird little we had this failed experiment.
We had to take our shot.
Yeah. And the very last part of the episode when you see Vina and Pike go back down into and this that shows you the actual shattered doorway, because we find out that when they're firing at it with the piece of like artillery, it did level it.
It did.
But they didn't think it was doing anything because it was all,
It's awesome.
the illusionary capacity there. And they go in and they're flanked by like two little Telosians, and so that's kind of the happy ending. And I was wondering where in the original footage that was, because I don't think they busted out all those sets or anything to do just that one scene, which was just going to be on a screen that Kirk sees,
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know.
So I think they may have actually changed the composite of the shot, because there's one part where she's kind of leading him up there before they even know about the Telosians.
Right.
And she's all happy and she's going to show him this big secret or whatever, and he's going up with her. And then maybe they cut that with, the scenes of the Telosians and the Shattered Gateway or something, or they compose it really well. But I don't think that shot's in the original, in the cage. Because of course he didn't go back down with Mina. So I really liked that they gave them that as like a little framing as well.
Sure.
Heading back down there. And, I wish perhaps the Next Gen or, some other Star Trek had reapproached Talos 4 in some fashion.
Sure.
To kind of get a sense of what's going on there now.
Yeah.
Come to find out, the Telosians do appear in an episode of Star Trek Discovery. But I have not seen that episode, and I have no...
Makes sense that they would be in the timeline.
Yeah, well, exactly. And because at that point, it was not forbidden to go to Talos.
Right.
So, because Discovery actually predates Captain Pike.
So what...
The Enterprise.
Don't you kind of write yourself into a future conundrum? So let's talk about the end of this episode. The Commodore, does he have the ability to just suspend General Order 7, I guess? He exonerates the crew.
Yeah.
They dump Pike off, and then...
Just this once, essentially.
Just this once? Yeah. Right up until somebody else is in a horrific accident or somebody else has a problem or somebody, you can be like, Talos would be like, look, this isn't a dumping ground for the can't get rights guys. Like, what are we doing? There's a bus every week showing up here now.
Well, and, it's
shuffling off a bunch of fucked up people.
They're like, if you give us some of your replicators, we'll take more of your invalids. And, and maybe that's how they end up solving each other's problems.
They're brokering. What a market. Yeah, we don't like slavery, but this is pretty good.
Yeah, you trade us your labor, and we'll take your can't get rights.
That's awesome. You're awesome.
But yeah.
But good shit, man. Good episode. I really enjoyed this two-parter.
Exactly. And even getting back to the fact that it was the pilot. The cage was originally the pilot for Star Trek. Mm-hmm. You see a depth there, which is really, really great.
Sure.
Seeing like the nature of reality, human desire for freedom and self-direction.
Right.
And all this stuff. And it gets into it all in a very early date, And we get number one in command.
Yeah.
Busting out the big guns and everything back in the mid-'60s.
You proposed a question earlier. Obviously, Pike makes the right choice here. I mean, this seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah.
You would take... Even if he was whole of body, you might take the Cypher route.
Yeah.
Or the Pike route in this case.
Yeah, especially when it doesn't involve, murking your friends on the ship and stuff.
Yeah, it's easy. They just drop you off.
Literally, yeah, they're just going to drop you off and that's it. And you can, in the back of your mind, though, do you think to yourself, I'm fucking Quasimodo?
I think that's the difficulty in this experiment is...
He was so grounded in reality.
So here's the thing.
And he knows in reality he's tied to that wheelchair.
If the Telosians could have rearranged his personality and or memories to make him more accepting of the illusion, they would have.
Yeah.
So we have to presume that they can't. Mm-hmm. Or maybe they couldn't back then. So they're not going to just be like, make him comply. When you have that level of power, mental power, you can do anything.
Yeah.
It's Professor X can do anything to you.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I wonder maybe what the solution would be, since he's so grounded in reality and he knows what his
so
real
virtuous.
His real situation is.
He's literally grounded in reality in a chair.
I wonder if you could basically have his reality be, okay, I see my old body over there in the chair.
I think they show that, don't they? Him walking.
Yeah, they show him walking
as
Pike. But so I'm wondering if he wouldn't accept it, like the Matrix. He won't accept heaven. So you have to show him like, oh yeah, no, you're still over there in the chair, but you can basically project yourself into the world. So you're in your strapping body, but you see your your old self, the husk of your body over there, and you can, just know that that's over there in that room, and I'm going to go live my life with Vina, who's in a different room. He's not going to look in there because I'll see how messed up she is now after 13 years.
Like, Rachel, fucking Zelda. Where's Denise Crosby again?
Yeah.
But no, I think, I think when you are rendered into that position you're in physically, then I think the choice is clear.
And I'm just wondering if he ended up ever being able to accept illusions over reality. Because he couldn't before.
Perhaps grudgingly accept. Yeah. He didn't want to accept.
Yeah.
The tension was so high, but he doesn't have anything, sadly, because of
his condition.
Yeah, what's he have to fulfill?
Yeah.
He's not a captain. I mean, he's active duty because we didn't have the heart to push him out, Jimmy. I mean, Jesus Christ, Jimmy, he's had a rough go, Let me tell you what it's like to open the back of that chair like you're taking out the dehumidifier bucket. It's not pretty. I don't think he wants to do that.
Hadn't even thought of that.
Yeah, well, it's tough. It's tough being Pike in the chair. So I don't know. So that aside, would you want to be Pike saying yes or no? No Talos, no salvation in sight.
Yeah. It's a tough question.
Yeah, because you're saying kill me.
Yeah, well, he's still got some of his senses. No
Can
doubt.
he do anything?
Well, but at some point, they're going to develop holodecks anyway. But granted, a holodeck wouldn't help him out. He's still, you are who you are in the holodeck. But
it's
I
true.
think
that's the difference with Talos.
There's got to be things to watch and to listen to, and the latest, Klingon opera. There's you can definitely eke out something. Yeah. Resembling
in the Star Trek universe, especially.
Yeah.
You would probably think there's got to be things you can do to entertain.
Traveling, to other worlds. Think about the novelty of that. I mean, just seeing places.
We're coming at it. We're coming at it from the perspective of we live here on Earth in 2021.
Well, and so put in that same position here on Earth in 2021, I imagine we'd be better off because we'd have a better wheelchair and a better program to communicate.
I mean, the son of a bitchin' thing can't even go backwards.
So
I don't know what happened.
Much more like Stephen Hawking. Hey, Stephen Hawking even, got married in his condition and had something resembling a romantic life, I guess. But
I'll give it a whirl for a bit, see what happens.
I was going to say, you might as well.
Give it a whirl.
See what happens, yeah.
Right, yeah, because you don't know what it's going to be. You can only think you know what it's going to be. So,
and there's a lot of interesting stuff to listen to and to hear. Listen to and to hear. Listen to and to see. And it's funny because I wouldn't normally say I would just embrace television and movies and such content as an escape from reality. But, maybe that's it. But so here's the thing, folks. You're not trapped in a wheelchair, so go outside. Or no, you're not trapped, not even in a wheelchair, because that
you're trapped as Pike.
Because hell, there's people in wheelchairs who could easily beat me at basketball.
1,000%.
Yeah. So
and live completely, full lives.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's kind of fucked up to be like, I'd kill myself. And these will be people in wheelchairs like, gee, thanks. It's kind of fucked up. Because I know people will say, yeah, kill me.
Yeah, his situation is
there's a difference between I'm in
extreme.
A wheelchair and I'm completely immobile and can't communicate.
But once again, using that Stephen Hawking example, I think is a much more appropriate. And obviously Stephen Hawking had a lot to offer.
But that's Hawking, not Pike.
Yeah.
Hawking's fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
Was.
Yeah, but you could maybe still write. You could.
It's worth trying.
Yeah, you could still.
I'm not
create.
saying I want to try it. I'm just saying I wouldn't. You
and
wouldn't.
If you can still create, you can still live.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And me, I would just.
Can I come?
TV. That's a good question. I'm going to say no. It looks like
that's tough.
In Pike's situation, the answer is no.
It's tough. You think so? And
I don't know.
You don't see anything.
No. Well, I mean,
that's conjecture, sir.
There could be a pocket pussy or. Something.
Pocket was. What is this? 1989?
No. What is the thing that
Fleshlight?
Fleshlight. That's. I don't know. I could remember. We've made Fleshlight jokes before.
I know.
That's actually what's in that chair, just underneath.
Oh, then he's good.
It's on 24/7.
Oh, Jesus, that sounds exhausting. Sounds chafing, actually.
Well, he doesn't feel the chafing anymore.
Maybe not.
It's an illusion.
He can't say more lube. Sadly, he can just keep saying no.
Well, every hour on the hour, a young lady walks in and asks him if he wants more lube.
Oh, okay. She just
So you can
shoots
say,
it down.
"Beep." Yes.
She puts it like in a little oil, like an oil tank. She unscrews it, checks the dipstick. Oh, he's running low on lube. Squirt some fucking Astroglide in there, or whatever you're using these days, you monsters.
Whatever the Federation equivalent is, anyway.
Stick with coconut oil. You can eat it and you can cook with it. You're good.
So many uses.
You can smear it all over the place.
Lube up your machines.
Yeah,
If only the Toulousians knew about coconut oil.
I cooked eggs in it this morning, whacked off with it that night. All right, we're going to get out of here.
You whacked off with the eggs? Or I'm confused.
Yeah, I got confused. It was late. It wasn't pretty. I got yolk everywhere. All right, this has been a blast, Nate. Menagerie 1 and 2 has been fun to discuss. Good wrap up on a two-parter. And that's it. We're going to get out of here, and we'll catch you guys on the flip side. Nathan, tell these good people goodbye.
Goodbye. Boop, boop. No, keep going.
You've been listening to Kirking Off, a warped Star Trek shakedown from LSG Media. Don't forget to visit us online at libertystreetgeek.net. That's libertystreetgeek.net.
Hey, everybody, this is Dean just breaking in the end here to say thank you to Floyd Fry for providing the lovely dulcet tones that you hear on the intro and outro of this particular podcast episode. He can be found on the Pop List podcast, as well as Scranton Talk, a generational The Office podcasts. And of course, I must thank the inimitable Scofflaws, who were gracious enough to let us use this great piece of music that we had to have for Kirking Off, called William Shatner. Make sure you guys pop over and check out what they have going on. And of course, thanks to all of the listeners who have been listening, subscribing, and sharing and all of that jazz. You guys make this whole thing possible. I put you all up for promotion. You're the best. Thank you. We'll see you next time.